So night one of the 2020 NFL Draft is officially in the books. And I got to say that it took about a half hour for the picks to actually start. It didn't need the constant reminder of what the hell's going on right now. It just would have been nice to just get into it. So that way the draft didn't unnecessarily have to carry on into the next morning. And also, early on, with there being no trades, it just kind of shows how dependent we are on the trades, and I could also say the live crowd reactions and so forth. The draft was kind of boring for the first half. Picked up a little bit in the interest in the second half of it, but yeah, it was nice to have the distraction. I'll say that, but nonetheless, it was a long sit, and I thought it could have been done a little bit better. Also, having the fans showing up virtually for every pick, it just looked dumb. It looked so fake and hokey and crappy. I understand, unique kind of situation, unique environment. Oh, it's pretty cool to be able to see Louis Riddick and Daniel Jeremiah and others all breaking down prospects on the same telecast. That was kind of unique and that was kind of cool. But anyways, since day one is a wrap, I'm here to talk about the biggest winners and losers and some of the biggest surprises or risks on what we just saw on day number one. I'm going to start off with the winners. Let's get off to a positive start, shall we? I like that. Number one, the Dallas Cowboys. You really wondered what was going to happen. Jerry Jones is locked in a house by himself and told everybody, don't bother him. You're like, oh God, this could be something epic. This could be train wreck levels of stupid. And then he just sat tight. And at pick 17, he has the number one receiver in this draft class, CeeDee freaking Lamb, fall right into his lap. So while he is now paying a guy in Amari Cooper number one wide receiver money, he has now actually drafted his future number one wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb. And when you look at that Cowboys team, with what they've already got in the fold on offense, and now you add a CeeDee Lamb to a receiving core of Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, you got to feel really good about that Cowboys offense if you're head coach Mike McCarthy. Sometimes the best thing to do is just sit tight and not do anything and let the draft fall to you and let the pieces go where they may. I could say the same thing about the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of people thought that their target was going to be Patrick Queen if he made it there to 28, as did I. Had them taking him in my final mock draft. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know, he ends up going pick 28 to Baltimore. It's just certain teams just seem to get it to go their way. And Patrick Queen just fell perfectly to the Ravens at 28. It's that ideal combination of fills need, great value. And you also look at him, and you just say, that's a Ravens type of guy, a Ravens type of player. And that's why the Ravens are one of the more class organizations over the past 2 decades in the National Football League because of stuff like this. They didn't have to do anything. The team that I would say that I would argue that I liked the most of what they did on day one was the Chargers. Sure, you could say, well, who the hell is going to start at offensive tackle for him in week one? Great question. That said, you're talking about getting ready to move into a new stadium. Nobody cares about your team. You got to have something to give some life to your organization now that you moved on from Phillip Rivers. And in my estimation, they got quarterback one in this draft in Justin Herbert. I don't love him as much of a prospect as I have some other guys in recent years. That said, I like Herbert's upside more than I do Tua and Joe Burrow and so forth. Looking at this, for them to be able to get him at 6 and he fell into their lap, it's perfect. And if they got it right, then they're good again for the next 10 to 15 years. And then trading up to pick 23 in round 1 to get linebacker Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma. Now you talk about adding him to a defense that already has Bosa, that already has Derwin James. Now you got another quarterback for your defense, so to speak. I love that pick. Great athlete. incredible character guy, the type of guy that you want to build your defense around and you want to be one of your featured guys that others on the roster look up to. I loved what the Chargers did. They got their quarterback of the future, and they got a building block for their defense for the next several years to come. Have to like what they did. But then you have some teams that you don't have to like what they did. I'm going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. What in the Sam hell are you doing? You trade away Jalen Ramsey last year to get a first-round pick to ultimately come around here and at pick 9 draft a corner in C.J. Henderson. The hell are you doing? The hell are they doing? And if you want to talk about salary cap and attitude and all of that stuff, it just doesn't make any damn sense. Especially when you turn around and pick 20 for a team that is trying to unload Yannick Ngakoue because they don't know how to handle players, they don't know how to treat people because they're morons, and they still weren't able to get that damn deal done. Now they sit there and take Ngakoue's replacement and K'Lavon Chaisson from LSU, and while in a bubble, I don't have as much of an issue with where the two guys were drafted. And while I don't have an issue with either one of them necessarily as prospects, it is about larger picture here. You take Chaisson a year after you've taken Josh Allen, and you're still trying to dump Ngakoue. All the while, you traded Jalen Ramsey last year just to have to take a corner the next year in the top 10. Like, this is just spinning your wheels. This is not a successful way to build a roster. All the while, you clearly have made a statement that you were showing some level of faith and confidence that either A, Gardner Minshew is going to suck and you're going to tank, and then you let the next GM and coach worry about it anyways, or B, that you think Minshew could actually be that guy. So you go into this draft with 2 first-round picks, and you don't come out with any offensive help from it. Who does that crap? Well, usually we'd say teams like the Jets and the Skid Marks and, those types of things. But it is now official. Like, we need a new nickname for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Where the Browns have been the Skid Marks. These guys are the Jagoffs of the NFL. Like, they are the Jagoffs. And this is just another example of that. Fire David Caldwell and do it now. Fire Doug Marrone and do it now. It's horrible. Horrible. And speaking of horrible, the Seattle Seahawks. What the hell were they doing? The hell were they doing? I am not saying that I don't like Jordan Brooks as a prospect. And I'm not saying that Seattle doesn't see him as a really good fit or that he isn't a really good fit for them. Like, I like Brooks. But you have to understand the draft game. You took him ahead of Patrick Queen. You took him in the first round when, for all intents and purposes, you really didn't need to. Like, how long do the Seahawks continue to be a good team and yet so consistently screw up the top of their draft year in and year out? This makes absolutely no damn sense to me. It's like they stay successful in spite of their stupid drafting. Kind of like a West Coast version of Belichick with the Patriots. And for a team that is obsessed with and always loves to trade down, you would think that they would have desperately tried to do it here. Maybe they couldn't get a deal that they liked. Maybe they thought they would have had to move down too far. Maybe they didn't have anybody really interested. I don't know. But damn. You reach on a guy and don't get any additional draft pick capital, at least to kind of compensate you for doing so. That's just dumb. And no, for the Seahawks in the way that they manage their first rounds in recent years, they do not deserve benefit of the doubt for this pick. It does not mean, again, that Jordan Brooks won't come in and play well, or won't be a good fit in that defense, or won't make an impact. It's just the understanding of the draft game. You know what I mean? It just really, really bad to me. And then I look at the San Francisco 49ers. Again, another one of these examples of kind of spinning the wheels. Back in 2016, you invest a top 10 pick in a stud in DeForest Buckner. He becomes that stud. Then when it's time to pay him, because you're close up against it in terms of the salary cap, you trade him off to the Colts for pick 13. So that way you then trade down one whopping spot to 14 to then take Javon Kinlaw, another defensive tackle interior lineman. What the hell are you doing? Well, he's a cheaper option. Again, this comes down to, I'm not saying Kinlaw is a bad prospect. I like Kinlaw a lot. I understand some people are going to look at this and say, well, they got a DeForest Buckner type of guy for a lot cheaper. But it is still right now all based on projection, and all the while, you had that studly defense last year, and yes, it got you to the Super Bowl. Yes, it gave you a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. And then what happened? You lacked playmakers on offense, and you don't have a goddamn quarterback that you can win it all with. So you decide to come into this situation this year, trade away a legit established stud to sit there and then draft a replacement. That's just really, really bad to me. Especially when you look at, they end up trading up for a team with limited draft pick capital as it was this year. Trade up from 31 to 25 to get Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver from Arizona State. If you were going to do that, then why in the blue hell didn't you just take CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy at 13? And if you were going to trade up to 25 like that, I certainly could ask the question, why the hell you wouldn't have drafted Jordan Love at that point? I don't get it. I just don't get it. And I think a couple of teams really rolled the dice here. One, it has to be the Miami Dolphins. Has to be. Boy, they better hope to God that Tua stays healthy. Boy, they better hope to God that Tua gets to a second contract. If he does, then this pick's not so bad. But if he doesn't, this is the type of clown show stuff that gets somebody fired. You know, it's all about risk-reward. And they felt like with the great risk, there was a great reward, and the potential of the reward outweighed the cost of the great risk. I disagree with that. I don't think it was. That said, only time will tell. And either the Dolphins will be right or I will be. Who knows? But there is no question with the injury history of Tua, especially when you look at the hip, it is a tremendous risk. Tremendous risk. And especially when you look at two other quarterbacks going later in round one, especially with Herbert going the very next pick to the Chargers at 6. If either one of those guys ends up being better than Tua in 3-4 years, then this is going to look really, really bad for the Dolphins. And speaking of Jordan Love, how about the Packers? This is not fair. It's not fair. Some of you are questioning this. Some of you, especially Chiefs heads, are going to sit there and say, this is not the same situation as 2005. Aaron Rodgers' film was so much better. Is it really? Do you actually remember Aaron Rodgers at Cal? Do you really? Do you remember the knocks on him about the Jeff Tedford system? That his arm was good but not special? Like, just because of what Aaron Rodgers became a decade and a half later does not necessarily equate to, you know, how good of a prospect he was. Because if he was that good of a prospect, he wouldn't have dropped into the 20s like he did in that 2005 draft. But as far as the Jordan Love piece, you could say, well, why didn't they help Aaron Rodgers with the playmaker? Why didn't they do this? Aaron Rodgers is 36. The Packers are trying to play the long game here. And especially for Bears fans that are mocking this or questioning it. The hell is wrong with you? The hell would you know about solid quarterback strategy? Team just traded for Foles after wasting the number 2 overall pick that they traded up for in 2017 on Mitchell Trubisky! Now, it is incredibly risky for the Packers, yes. Because Love is raw. In a lot of ways. Jordan Love will need work. You're talking about you invested a first-round pick when you feel like you're in a contending window right now on a guy that may not play for 2, 3, 4 years. That is risky. You know, in a draft class that had wide receiver talent and other things where you could have maybe gave Aaron Rodgers some help, it didn't work. You didn't get it in round 1. So will it work out? Who knows? God, I can't imagine what Aaron Rodgers' reaction is going to be. I can't wait to see how he treats him, just which is like doo-doo. But I can't knock him for taking the risk. It is a risk. But if it pays off, the payoff is that potentially the Green Bay Packers have found their next quarterback for the next decade plus. Like if you look back in 5 years and Jordan Love is that type of guy, then you'll look like clowns for having knocked this. And frankly, in 3 years, if you don't think he's the guy and Aaron Rodgers is 39 pushing 40, then you just go right back around and draft another quarterback. It's interesting that they traded up for him. I agree. A bit of a risk there. Bit of a risk that this totally pisses off Aaron Rodgers to the point where he's trying to demand a trade. But they had to do it. They just had to do it. And then there's the Bears. It's just not fair. Anyways, that's what I thought were the biggest winners and losers of day one of the 2020 NFL Draft. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll be back after day 2. Yeehaw!